This is CNN Breaking News.
We're following breaking news here in the Situation Room. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington, and we want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. CNN confirms that the United States and his allies thwarted a terrorist plot to destroy a U.S.-bound airliner around the one-year anniversary of Osama bin Laden's death. That would be some 6 days ago. We're told the plot involved an al-Qaeda affiliate in Yemen and that an explosive device was recovered. It was similar to past bomb attempts linked to al-Qaeda, we're told, including the failed attack by the so-called underwear bomber back on Christmas Day 2009. A Yemeni official says its government was made aware of the possible bombing attack and alerted the United States. The official says the would-be bomber had not picked a specific target. We have correspondents and analysts working the breaking news, digging deeper into this story. But let's go over to the Pentagon. Chris Lawrence is getting new information. Chris, what are you picking up?
Yeah, Wolf, we've got some new information just coming in now at the top of the hour. A U.S. counterterrorism official is confirming to CNN that this was a non-metallic device and that it was specifically designed for use by a suicide bomber on an airline. This official says it was very similar and in the same category as the bomb that was used, the so-called underwear bomb, on Christmas Day in 2009, but it was slightly different. He said what this shows intelligence agencies is that al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is adapting their tactics and changing. It really underscores what White House counterterrorism advisor John Brennan said just last month when he called al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula very, very dangerous. Wolf.
Chris, stand by. Nick Robertson is standing by in London as well. Nick, what are you picking up?
Well, Wolf, we can see there are certain similarities here. We're hearing that the bomb is a similar type of device as used by the underpants bomb. We know that bomb was made by a Yemeni Saudi bomb maker, Ibrahim al-Asiri, who lives in Yemen, an al-Qaeda operative. He also made the printer bombs that were destined to be put on an aircraft flying to the United States that were intercepted because of intelligence tip-offs. And it does appear in this case that there was another intelligence tip-off that led to this bomb being caught. These are conclusions that we're drawing from the small pieces of information we have at the moment. In the case of the printer bombs a year and a half ago, it was Saudi intelligence officials that tipped off other counterintelligence agencies around the world, the United States and Great Britain, to the fact that these bombs were out there. We don't know if it's Saudis this time. We do know that they played a role last time. And the explosive at the center of this last time was 400 grams of PETN. This is a highly explosive white powder, can be made into a paste, as it was for the underpants bomb, and then sort of sealed around the body so it's hard to detect. So at the moment, these are the details that we have. We don't know if it's the same bomb maker, but it certainly bears his hallmarks. We haven't been told the type of explosive. We're told in this case that it's similar to the last one. If it's similar, that's probably PETN. And what we do know about the underpants bomber 2 years ago, that his device failed to go off because the detonator he was using didn't operate correctly. These are the details that we have so far, Wolf.
We're also getting a statement, Nick, from the White House, from the National Security Council. The deputy spokesperson, Caitlin Hayden, just putting out this statement, and I'll read it to our viewers. The president was informed about the plot in April by his Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor John Brennan, and he has received regular updates and briefings as needed from his national security team. While the president was assured that the device did not pose a threat to the public, he directed the Department of Homeland Security and law enforcement and intelligence agencies to take whatever steps necessary to guard against this type of attack. The statement goes on to say the disruption of this IED, improvised explosive device, plot underscores the necessity of remaining vigilant against terrorism here and abroad. The president thanks all intelligence and counterterrorism professionals involved for their outstanding work and for serving with the extraordinary skill and commitment that their enormous responsibilities demand. That statement from the National Security Council over at the White House. Peter Bergen, now that we have an official statement from the White House about this, it gives us a little bit more context, perspective about what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, so that's interesting that it was in April that the president was briefed. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, we should put this in a little bit of perspective, Wolf. I think that clearly there wasn't, you know, this is a plot that was very nascent. I think obviously this guy, Asiri, is, of all the people in the United States government would like to try and find, it is surely him. He keeps trying to create these devices. I think, as Fran and Nick have indicated, you know, my money is on the Saudis having basically given the information. I mean, they have had a huge campaign against this group, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The reason that it moved to Yemen is because they put so much pressure on it in Saudi. They have informants. Clearly, if they could get the actual way-bill number of the cartridges that were put on the plane that were sent to Chicago and essentially give that information to the United States government, they have somebody really deep inside Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula who's giving them great information. So I would be very surprised if the information originally did not come from the Saudis and was handed over to us, to the United States, in some fashion.
Let me bring Fran Townsend into this conversation, our national security contributor. Fran's a member of the CIA and Homeland Security External Advisory Committees. We got a statement, as you see now, from the White House. John Brennan, a man you know, the counterterrorism specialist over there at the White House, saying the president was initially informed about this plot that was thwarted back in April.
Well, Wolf, a couple of things. One, I mean, I really think now that we know that this device was recovered, putting that together with what Peter was explaining to you about this Saudi intelligence penetration of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, I must tell you, based on my experience, you've got to believe that it was this penetration that would have permitted intelligence officials to actually get their hands on a device. That's an intelligence coup for any service, but it requires one with a deep capability and penetration into the organization. The other thing is, you know, we were hearing initial reports that this plot went back to the 9/11 anniversary back in September. If the president was hearing about this and briefed in April, clearly this is much more recent than the 9/11 anniversary. This was a plot that was developing, albeit in the nascent stage, but this is, you know, this is a 2012 plot, not a 2011 plot.
Well, I thought this may have been in coordination with the first anniversary of bin Laden's death, which was May 1st, and if the president was informed in April about this plot, presumably it could have been connected to the anniversary of bin Laden's death, Fran.
Yes, no, that's exactly right, Wolf. You know, I'm always skeptical about these notions of tying things to anniversaries. While, you know, that's not been, while we've always worried about that in the counterterrorism community, we've not really found that to be the case. This one was really different. I think people did worry that they would use this not to recognize an anniversary, but to take revenge, and that would make tremendous sense. Elise
Labadie, our State Department reporter, is here as well. What are you hearing from your sources here in Washington?
Well, the information is coming in right now, but it's an initial, obviously the U.S. is trying to, as Fran said, launch it as a success. This is they're calling it a real intelligence coup.
Clearly it is a success.
That's right, yeah. Obviously. But at the same time, I think they want to double down and continue this cooperation, not just with the Saudis, as Peter said, is really good, but with the Yemenis. You know, you have a new Yemeni president, President Saleh, who just left office recently, was one of the U.S. key allies in the war on terror. There was a lot of concern when his deputy, President al-Hadi, took over that cooperation with the Yemenis wouldn't be as great. Right now, Al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula in Yemen is very strong. They've been making a lot of inroads, and there was a recent attack in Yemen, killed about 70 soldiers. So they're actively fighting it too. I think the U.S. wants to take this and move further to enhance their cooperation.
I assume, Peter, that the U.S. or the Yemenis, or a combination thereof, they've rounded up those involved in this plot.
You know, I think that's not clear yet, because if indeed the hypothesis that there was a Saudi penetration, it's completely possible that the device was simply handed to the United States without actually, because clearly there's nothing in this reporting so far that Asiri, who's after all building these devices, who's been doing this for 2 years, is either dead or captured.
So your sense is that it was a combination of Saudi assistance, Yemeni assistance, in effect, that helped the United States thwart this plot?
Yes, I think that's right.
But in the scheme of things, how big of a deal, Peter, and you've studied this now for, what, 15, 20 years, how big of a deal is this plot, if in fact it is as billed?
Well, let's just take the record of this group, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. They failed to kill the top Saudi counterterrorism official. They almost succeeded. They failed to blow up Northwest Flight 253 over Detroit. They failed to get the cargo planes to blow up with the most recent set of bombings. And this thing seems to be a, kind of a disaster. So, if you look at it from their perspective, they're not really getting anything through with any success.
Let me go over to the White House. Jessica Yellen is standing by, our chief White House correspondent. We got the statement from the NSC, from the National Security Council, saying that the president was informed back in April. What else are they saying over there, Jessica?
Well, if I heard you raise with Fran Townsend earlier the possibility that this could have been timed to coincide with the anniversary of Osama bin Laden's death, and I was informed by a counterterrorism official that that is not the case, that they're confident that this was not timed to coincide with Osama bin Laden's death. And further, it says in this statement, and again, I was assured that they're confident that this was never a threat to the public. So the statement actually says the president was assured by Brennan that the device did not pose a threat to the public, but he still asked the Department of Homeland Security to take whatever steps necessary to guard against this type of attack. They are hailing it, counterterrorism officials, as Elise has said, as a great accomplishment and a sign that American intelligence capabilities have improved enormously since September 11th. I asked, is this a sign that al-Qaeda has eroded since September 11th? And I said, no, it's really evidence of how far the U.S. has come since that time. Well,
yeah, that's what, because in the statement, Jessica, I know you've read it, and I read it to our viewers, that there does seem to be, at least on the surface, a contradiction of sorts when the statement says that while the president was assured that the device did not pose a threat to the public, he directed the Department of Homeland Security and law enforcement and intelligence agencies to take whatever steps necessary to guard against this type of attack. So is that just out of an abundance of caution that direction went out? That's their indication, that if they're that to make sure there's nothing else out there and to remain vigilant. But they're confident that this IED was not a threat to the public at any time. All right, Jessica, thank you. Paul Cruikshank is a CNN terrorism analyst as well. He's joining us on the phone. I'm curious what your reaction, Paul, is to this.
Well, I think this shows al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula's serious intent to target American aviation. They've tried this several times before, and this is a group, Wolf, which has been expanding its presence in southern Yemen. And in just the last issue of Inspire magazine, which was released in the last few days, they said that expansion had given them access to chemicals, access to more money, and had made them more capable of attacking the United States. So this plot, it would appear, is from this group, and I think the working hypothesis will be that Ibrahim al-Asiri, their master bomb maker, somebody very well-versed in making explosives, is again the mastermind of this plot, Wolf. And al-Asiri, we believe, is in Yemen, Paul, is that right? The belief is that he's somewhere in Yemen, sort of hiding out in the tribal areas of Yemen, that he's still at large, he's still there. And we've heard from some regional security sources that he's been training up other people in the group to learn how to build these sorts of explosives. Now, in these past plots, they've used a white powdery explosive called PETN, and this is an explosive which they can get through security scanners at airports. So it's possible that this plot again involved a PETN-based device, Wolf. Paul Cruikshank, don't go too far away. We'll stay on top of the breaking news. A plot thwarted by the United States, presumably with help from Yemen, maybe from Saudi Arabia as well, to blow up an American-bound airliner in Yemen with some sophisticated equipment. We're getting more information. A statement coming in from the Department of Homeland Security. We'll take a quick break. We'll return to the breaking news right after this.